You've heard someone from your family say something like, "I think I'm saying goodbye," and after a few days that person is gone. Is it possible for the body and mind of an elderly to really know when the end is near? And even more frightening, is there clear signs that they try to show us, but that we just ignore? In this video, you will understand why thousands of families only realize these signs when it is too late. If you have a father, grandfather, or someone dear over 60 or 70, what we will say here can change the way you see the last days of the life you love. And no, this is not superstition, no mystical spiritual chat. Science, palliative medicine, and even reports of caregivers and family have shown that there are physical, emotional, and even behavioral symptoms that appear in the last days before death. But as no one has taught us to identify it, we ended up treating it as normal, until the inevitable happens. And at this point, the pain of loss comes with a silent regret. Could I have done something different? Unfortunately, this is a common thought of those who have already lost a loved one without understanding the silent signs he was giving. And these signs are subtle but extremely powerful. Changes in the look, enigmatic words, unusual behaviors. All this can be the body by saying, "I'm going." But while the old man feels it clearly, the family is distracted, busy, denying reality. Did you know that many elderly people report a deep sense of peace and disconnect with the world days before they depart? Others let out phrases like, "I think I'm disturbing," or "I have fulfilled my mission here," and many have diverse dreams with deceased family, as if they were being called. These are signs that for those who are attentive, are not coincidence, but for those who live on autopilot, they go unnoticed until the moment of mourning. And then is the question that doesn't want to silence. Why do most people only realize these signs when it's too late? That's what we're going to talk about today. I want to show you the main signs that the elderly feel a few days before they die and, more importantly, how you can identify these signs while there is still time to act with love, presence, and dignity. So if you are someone who cares about the health of your parents, your grandparents, or even your own aging journey, don't leave this video, because what we will reveal here can make you see the end of life in a completely new way. And especially, it can help you offer more presence, more empathy, and less regrets. And don't think this subject is sad or negative. Quite the contrary. Understanding the signs of farewell can be one of the most beautiful ways of honoring the life of those you love. It may be the chance to give that hug, to hear that story, to thank for everything before it's too late. But for that, you need to recognize the signs. And that's exactly what we will reveal now. But before continuing, it answers me in the comments. Have you been through a situation where someone close seemed to be saying goodbye and days later passed away? Or maybe you felt something was different but couldn't identify what it was. Sharing this type of experience can help other people who are going through exactly this now. So leave your report below, as simple as it may seem. It can be a valuable warning to someone who still has time to act. And if this content is making sense to you, don't forget to leave your like right now. It sounds like a simple click, but it helps a lot to deliver this video to others who need to know this information, especially those who, like you, want to take better care of the family. Of course, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because here we talk about health, aging, and the silent signs that no one comments, but that everyone needs to understand. After all, when it comes to life and farewell, ignorance can cost more than we think. And in the next passage, I will show you exactly what are the most common signs that appear in the last 3 days before death, and why they are repeated in so many cases, even among different people, different cultures, and completely different life stories. Pay attention. It is curious how, throughout life, we get used to seeing death as distant, as if it were an isolated event that comes by surprise, abruptly. But for those who watch carefully, especially in the elderly, death is not usually an unexpected visitor. She gives signs, small signs, almost always silent, that go unnoticed in the noise of everyday life. They are gestures, words, sensations that arise with a much higher frequency what we imagine. Palliative medicine, which accompanies terminal patients, already recognizes this as a real phenomenon. Body and mind come into a state of preparation for farewell, and this is when the most subtle but deeper warnings are born. Many reports from family members, caregivers, and even doctors point to the same standard. Elderly who, 3 days before they died, began to act differently. Suddenly, that person who was quiet begins to speak serenity, about the past, about life. Some say things like, "I think my time is coming," or "I'm feeling very light, different." Others, out of nowhere, mention people who have already left, as if they had dreamed of them. And there are not rare cases where these reports come with impressive tranquility, as if the elderly himself had already accepted what was coming. There was a specific case that marked me. An 84-year-old lucid man lived with his daughter and grandchildren. He had been facing some health problems, but nothing unusual for his age. 3 days before he died, he called his daughter and said, "I want to thank you for everything. You were a good daughter. I feel like I'm saying goodbye." The daughter, not knowing what to answer, thought it was just a crisis of nostalgia. The next day, he asked to see all grandchildren. He spent the day smiling, remembering old stories, laughing, like an informal but complete farewell. On the third day, he died sleeping. No pain, no agony. When the family stopped to reflect, it was clear that he had felt. He knew. Such cases are not isolated. Many families report similar behaviors. Seniors who begin to give advice as if it were the last time, who organize documents, deliver personal effects saying this is for you to keep, or who go to sleep deeply, as if they were entering a state of transition. Some start talking less, others staring at some point, as if they were seeing something others can't see. All of this seems mysterious, but when we look with sensitivity, we realize that it is a farewell process, a process that the body begins naturally, even if the family's conscious mind is not yet prepared to accept. There is also a very specific type of sensation reported by the elderly in the days before death, the feeling of lightness. Many say phrases like, "It seems that I'm floating," "I feel that I'm no longer stuck in my body," or even, "I don't feel my weight anymore." This type of report is so recurring that it was even studied in clinical environments. The explanation is not only in the physical body, but in a set of factors: changes in circulation, drop in energy levels, hormonal changes, and even neurochemical effects that signal that the body is turning off from the most complex functions. And the brain, which is an emotional machine, begins to create transition experiences that can be perceived as dreams, visions, memories of the past, or even dates with loved ones who have already left. Another important aspect is the change in sleep pattern. Many elderly in the final days start sleeping more than normal, but it is not a common sleep. It is a deep sleep, often without movements, as if the body is resting to something bigger. Some wake up and speak disconcerting phrases like, "I thought I had gone," or "Why did I come back?" They are meaningful phrases that, when ignored, represent lost opportunities for emotional connection to those who are leaving. Palliative medicine often guides family members to be aware of these behavioral and emotional changes, not because they are a supernatural warning, but because they are natural reflexes of a body that is closing a cycle. The nervous system, the hormones, the vital energy, everything goes into a slower pace, and the brain, in its silent wisdom, begins to express itself through emotions, words, and behaviors that are, in essence, a kind, good body. But unfortunately, out of fear, rush, or denial, many families prefer to ignore these signs. And when they realize there is no more time to say what needed to be said, that's why this video is so important, because he is not just about death. It is about life, about the most sensitive moment of human existence, the moment a cycle ends. When we understand that these signs exist, we can welcome better, love more intensely, and even live with more presence with those we love. And that is worth gold. Because those who have lost someone dear without understanding the signs often carries a silent guilt, a regret of not having asked more, listened to more, hugged more. Therefore, pay attention to these lines, such as, "I had a strange dream tonight. It seems that I'm off," or "I feel my mission is accomplished." It may be the only one warning that the loved one can give us. Maybe you have already heard one of these phrases and ignored. Maybe someone you love has tried to say goodbye and you haven't noticed it. But there is still time to learn. There is still time to be present. Therefore, watch it to the end, because we will still talk about other signs, including physical and emotional, that appear in these final days. And more than that, let's talk about how to be on the side of someone who is departing. Can be an act of love, respect, and healing. And if you've been through something similar, or if this theme messes with you somehow, write here in the comments. Share with us your experience. It can be with a simple phrase like, "My grandfather said this before leaving," or My mother also dreamed of people who had already died. Each story is a piece that helps build a more human, more sensitive understanding of the time to leave. And as we go deeper into this delicate but necessary conversation, it is even more evident as the body, the mind, and even something that goes beyond biology seem to prepare for the moment of departure. Many of the reports that come to us, whether of children, grandchildren, or caregivers, follow the same pattern. And when we start joining the pieces, everything makes sense. There are 3 very specific signs, almost always present, in the days before the death of an elderly. And the truth is that they are there, wide open, only our mind, not yet prepared to accept finitude, prefers to look away. But today, you won't ignore it anymore. We'll learn to recognize. You will understand what it means when that gentleman who has always been reserved begins to seem quieter than usual. You will know how to interpret that different silence, that absence of hunger, that distant look, because when this happens, it may be the beginning of the farewell. The first sign, and perhaps the most touching of all, is a kind of deep peace. But it is not any peace. It is a calm that is not explained with words. It is as if the elderly suddenly entered a state of unusual serenity. Do you know when you look at someone and feel that person is elsewhere? That's exactly that. Many children describe this phase as a moment when their father or mother seemed to be beyond the world, with a different glow in the eyes, a calm way to speak, a no hurry, as if they already knew their time was told, but without despair, without resistance. And this tranquility does not arise by chance. It comes because the body, in its millennial wisdom, has already understood that it is in the final stretch. Metabolism slows down, the brain reduces the rhythm, the nervous system goes into a resting mode, and this biological deceleration generates an emotional response of acceptance and distancing. The elderly begins to disconnect from material life, obligations, small concerns. He is no longer annoyed by the noise. He does not discuss politics, no matter what he will have dinner. He simply is present, still, in peace. But the family sometimes interprets this as improvement or laziness, when in fact it is the opposite. It is the soul saying that it is preparing to leave. The second sign is extreme fatigue, accompanied by an almost total loss of appetite. Here the body begins to physically demonstrate that it is collapsing. And it is not a common weakness. It is a tiredness that does not pass with rest, that does not improve with food. It is that moment when the elderly begins to sleep more and more, and when he wakes up he feels he has no strength to speak. That's when that breakfast he always liked begins to be refused. The soup is untouched. The favorite chocolate no longer has a taste. And it is not because he is sad or sick with the stomach. It is because the body is turning off the systems that were once fundamental to live. Digestion becomes a secondary function. Hunger disappears because the need for physical energy no longer exists. The body's priority is now to keep the little energy that remains to maintain basic vital functions to the end. And the mind in this process collaborates. Accepted. It gives it smoothly from the fight against time. And once again the family is confused. He believes it is just weakness, or that the food is bad, or that the elderly is doing mourning. But no, this is biological. It's real. It is one of the lighter signs that the body is preparing to give its last sigh. And ignoring this is ignoring a silent request for care, respect, presence. The third sign, and perhaps the most mysterious of all, are the dreams. But they are not ordinary dreams. These are vivid, intense dreams that often involve deceased family members. These are impressive reports of elderly people who say they have talked to their mother, with their father, with siblings who have long left. In some cases, they wake up and tell details with scary clarity. They say phrases like, "My mother came to pick me up. My go-hand said he's waiting for me." Or, "I dreamed that I was coming home, but it was a different house." And most interestingly, by telling these dreams, the old man shows no fear. He speaks with sweetness, with hope, sometimes even with a tip of joy. They are symbolic experiences that play deep in those who hear. In hospitals, homes of elderly, in common houses, in large and small cities. These meetings with loved ones who have died can be the result of a reorganization of the brain, an emotional response to the fear of death, or perhaps something that we don't even understand right, invisible that connects the beginning to the end. And when an old man reports this kind of dream, It is essential to listen carefully. Do not interrupt. Not saying let it be, it was just a dream. Because for those close to the end, these dreams are not only dreams. They are messages. They are fired. They are links between the now and what comes next. And you, as a familiar, have a chance to participate in this moment, to validate this experience, to welcome with love, listening, with presence. Because the pain of loss can be immense, but the pain of not hearing one last request, of not paying attention to the last speech, this can last a lifetime. Perhaps right now you are remembering some phrase your grandfather said, or this time her mother, days before she died, seemed to be strangely calm. Maybe now, listening to this, everything makes sense. And that's exactly why this content needs to be spread. Because if more people knew how to recognize these signs, more farewells would be made with dignity, more hugs would be given in time, more words would be said before eternal silence. If you've heard something like, if someone in your family has said that, it seemed to be saying goodbye, he writes here in the comments. Tell us how it was. It can be a quick sentence like, my grandfather dreamed of his mother 3 days before leaving, or, my aunt lost his appetite and was at peace before he died. This kind of comment helps other people recognize the signs. It helps spread consciousness, respect, and sensitivity. And even after all this you heard here, perhaps the question that else is hammering in your head is, but why most families don't realize these signs? And this is a fair question. A question that many carry guilt, pain, with that feeling that they could have done more. The truth is that it is not a lack of love, it is never. Most people deeply love their parents, their grandparents, their uncles. The problem is elsewhere. It is at the rapid pace we live in. The routine consumes. The head is always in 1,000 places at the same time. The cell phone vibrates, the work calls, the slips do not stop arriving. And in this whirlwind of commitments, who is there, on our side, aging in silence, begins to disappear slowly, not because of them, but because the eyes of who to see are always looking ahead, and almost never for now. And what hurts most of it is that the signs are there, clear, diaries. But we learn to pay attention only to what is physical. If the pressure is high, if glucose has risen, if it has a fever, if you have body pain. But the most important signs, those who come before the body's collapse, are invisible to the hurry. These are small, emotional, spiritual, behavioral details. A lost look, a longer breath, a tighter than normal hug. The time your father held you stronger and was silent. That comment from his mother saying that he was already tired of life. And you responded with a, imagine mother to it. Only she was serious. And you didn't see it. This happens every day in all parts of the world. People say goodbye and families thinking it was just another ordinary day. Disconnection is not out of evil. It is by distraction. It is for fear, too. We are afraid to face the end. Avoid thinking about death as if ignoring the subject would protect us from it. But death does not ask for permission. She doesn't expect us to be ready. And so the more we deny the signs, the more surprised we will be when the last sigh arrive. Another very real point that contributes to this emotional blindness is the way we were educated to deal with the elderly. How many times have you heard someone say, it's an age thing, it's getting Renzinza? Are you talking to yourself because it's gaga? These labels make us really stop listening. We begin to treat the speeches of the elders as irrelevant, as delusions or exaggeration. And then when they say, I think I'm leaving, no one takes it seriously. Q. The elderly feels. He feels his body slowing down, feels his soul moving away, feels his time dripping by his hands, and the least he expects is that someone is there, with an open heart, willing to listen with respect. Medicine focuses on exams, society focuses on production, and the family often focuses on overload. It is understandable, but it is in this scenario that the deepest signs end up beating. The mother who suddenly begins to say goodbye to the photos, the grandmother who makes a point of delivering her rings, that uncle who decides to organize all the rolls and leave everything written in a notebook. They are subtle but extremely symbolic gestures. But if you are too worried about the next meeting, with traffic, the shopping of the week, with the reply from WhatsApp, you won't see. You will think it's just a whim, a nostalgia, a coincidence. And this is where the pain of many families lives. The pain of not having been present. Because sometimes what is missing is not time. It is a real presence. Being there with full body, eyes in the eyes, heart available. Listen without haste. Observe without judgment. It is so common to hear phrases like, "If I knew it was the last day, I would have stayed more. If I had paid attention to that hug, I would have said I loved him. He tried to tell me, but I was too busy." These phrases become deep scars. Because unlike other pains, it doesn't go through time. She stays. She repeats herself in mind like a movie that we wanted to go back just to change a speech, an attitude, a choice. Therefore, this part of our conversation may be the most important. Because now you understand the signs, but you also need to understand what prevents you from seeing them. And it goes beyond the rush. It is an invitation to reflection, an invitation looking with other eyes. The elderly who live with you or who call you sometimes just to know how you are may be sending signs every day. But are you really listening? Your father may be giving you signs of tiredness, farewell, exhaustion, but are you too busy to notice? It may be that this random comment of your mother, "This may be my last party," is not just a joke. It may be that your grandfather's silence is not just forgetfulness. It may be that he is waiting for a gesture of hers, a moment of listening, a look that says, "I'm here and I see you." The human connection is a two-way road, and in the final stretch of life, what an elderly desires more, even more than medicines and treatments, is to be seen, be respected, be heard. When words begin to disappear, the gestures speak louder. When the body begins to fail, the heart communicates in other ways. And if you are really present, you will notice, you will feel, you will understand. This video, this conversation, this reflection, it is not about death only. She is about reconnection, about do not leave what can be done now, about realizing that the time we think we have may not be guaranteed. Therefore, pay attention to the next conversations, in the next eyes, in the next visits, because perhaps, in the middle of a simple comment, the last request for attention from someone you love is hidden. And that is why this theme needs to be spoken so clearly. Because when we understand that, the relationship changes, time changes, the farewell transforms. She is no longer abrupt, painful and full of guilt, and becomes a rite of love, listening and real. And since we're really talking, I want you to share yours too. Tell me here in the comments, have you ever lived something like? Have you felt that someone close was saying goodbye but at the time did not realize? Have you heard some phrase like, "I think I'm going," and only understood after everything happened? Leave your experience here. It can be in a few words like, "My grandmother said goodbye and I didn't realize," or "My father hugged me different on the last day." Each report here can help someone else wake up, connect, see what can still be seen. And now you have understood the signs, which has clearly seen what most people prefer to ignore. Perhaps the most important question you can do is, what do I do when I see these signs? And this question carries immense power, because it shows that you are willing not to repeat the same mistakes, that you don't want to be one in that crowd that you only realize when it's too late. Because yes, there is something you can do, and it's not complicated at all. You don't need great attitudes, beautiful speeches, money, equipment, magic formulas. What you really need is presence, royal presence, emotional presence, silent but whole presence. And that, my friend, is worth more than anything at this stage of life. When you realize that the elderly are beginning to demonstrate those signs, different peace, loss of appetite, dreams with loved ones, long eyes to nothing, farewell gestures, the first step is to hear, but listening for real. It is not listening in a hurry, thinking of the answer while the other speaks. It is listening with an open heart, with humility. It is letting silence exist between one sentence and another, without trying to fill the void. Because sometimes, in this void, a truth that needs to be felt, not explained. Listening to the elderly at this moment is listening to the voice of wisdom, experience, the soul that has lived a lot and is now preparing to rest. And when you listen without judging, you offer the other the greatest gift anyone can give: welcome. To judge less is to understand that each person feels and expresses the arrival of death in a way. Some will want to talk about everything, make everything clear, resolve pending, deliver secrets. Others will close, will choose silence as a farewell, and it's okay. No way is better than the other. What matters is that you do not interpret it as weakness, as drama, as an exaggeration. What the elderly need at this moment is to be respected in their way of feeling. And to respect, you need to stop trying to control. Stop saying, "Don't say that. It's going to be all right. Don't think so." Because sometimes he knows it won't be all right. He feels, and denying it only drives you away. Instead say, "I'm here. If you want to talk, I listen. If you want to be silent, I get you in silence." Because this is true love. Love without filter. Maduro love. Another essential point is care for dignity. Many people, when you realize that the elderly are close to the end, begins to treat it as a burden, as someone who is giving work. This happens more than you think. Sometimes, without realizing it, family members say things like, "He doesn't help anything else, only lives in bed, just complain," and that hurts, because the elderly feels. He notices the impatient look, the tone of voice annoyed, the hurry to finish a conversation, and that makes you feel that you no longer have value. That became a weight. But it can't be like that. Anyone close to the end needs more than ever to feel important. You need to feel that your life had meaning, that your presence is still dear, that your story matters. Therefore, take care of dignity. Change the diaper with respect. Give the medicine with love. Serve the food with a smile, even if he eats only 2 spoons. Hold your hand firmly. Look in the eyes. Say, "Thanks for everything." Say you were important to me, and don't be afraid to seek support. Taking care of someone at this stage is not easy. It requires emotional balance, preparation, patience. Sometimes you will need to cry in the hidden bathroom. Sometimes you will feel lost, angry, guilty, exhausted, and all this is normal. So seek help. Medical if necessary, psychological if possible, spiritual if it is your belief. Talk to a therapist, with a religious leader, with a friend who has gone through this. You don't have to go through this process alone, because death, however lonely, is also a collective event. It changes whole families. She reopens wounds, arouses trauma, realizes relationships, and the more support you have, the lighter this way will be. Also remember that it is never too late to reconnect. If you walked away, you have lost your bond. If there were fights, hurts, distances, there is still time. Even if the elderly are silent, more tired, even if they no longer speak, your presence may be a request for forgiveness. A hug can cure years of silence. A touch to the hands can be enough to say everything that has not been said. Don't wait for the coffin to cry. If you have something to solve, resolve now. Even if there is no answer, even if there are no words, the heart feels, the body notices, the soul understands. And if the elderly still have the strength to speak, encourage him to tell his story. Ask him to teach you something. Record your voice, keep your words, write down your advice. These small actions become treasures after it goes. And for those who are leaving something of yourself is a relief. It is the certainty that it will not be forgotten, of which he lived for a reason. We live running away from death. But when she approaches, if we have the courage to look at, she can teach us about life, teach about what really matters, about what is worth it. And believe me, in the end, what matters is not the money you gave, the clothes you bought, the exams you paid. What remains are the moments, the time you sat on the edge of the bed, the day you were silent just holding your hand, the memory of a coffee taken along, even if nothing has been said. If you have been through this or are going through now, tell me here in the comments. Tell me how you realized that someone was saying goodbye. Share the phrase the person said. Write here below something like, "My mother said that her had fulfilled her mission," or "My grandfather stopped eating and was smiling, looking to the sky." These phrases, as simple as they seem, can be a light for those who have not noticed the signs. If you stayed here, it is because this content has actually touched you in some way, and it already shows that you are a different person, someone who values life, who seeks understanding, who loves it. People talk about what almost no one has the courage to talk about, the silent signs of the body, soul, and heart in the most important moments of life. And look, if you arrived until the end of this video, comment here below, "I want to be real present." Write just like this because it will show me and everyone that you are part of this community that chooses to live with more conscience, more empathy, and more love. Don't forget to leave your like too. It helps this video reach other families who need to hear this urgent and deep message. Your like is a sign that this type of content needs to continue to exist. And now, enjoy that you are here and click on the next video that is appearing on the screen, because there we will continue this conversation and show you how small attitudes in everyday life can completely transform the way you connect with the elderly of your life. I find you there.